we go. We got the live. I wasn't sure if I was live yet. Okay, so I tried to do this live earlier before the imposter syndrome talk to remind you guys that it was happening, but I don't think it actually published for some reason because I can't find it anywhere in the Facebook world. So sorry if you get it twice, because I did actually do this earlier, but apparently it didn't work or it didn't post or something. I don't know why. So anyway, we're talking about feelings today, and so I just wanted to jump on real quick and tell you a little bit more about why this stuff really matters. So I want you to think for a minute how your life might be different if you weren't afraid or repelled by that scary emotion that we talked about earlier today. Because really, when we think about why feelings matter, it's because our feelings drive our actions. And when we feel angry, for instance, we act differently than we would if we felt sad or if we felt glad or if we felt excited. There are a bunch of feelings that often come up time and time again when I'm talking to female physicians, and these typically are guilt, fear, obligation, overwhelm, and shame. And so, many of these are born from thought traps that we find ourselves in, like imposter syndrome, like needing to be perfect, like thinking that failure is somehow a weakness that we have, or that it diminishes our worthiness. And, the last one is really wanting to please others so that we can get external validation and feel better about ourselves. When these thoughts start to stir up the ugly feelings that we don't like, then we usually take one of three actions. So the first is we might resist the emotion. I think of this like if you were in a swimming pool and you had a beach ball and you were trying to push it down, and then the force of the water would be trying to push it back up. It's like we get those little, we don't feel the emotion all the way to its peak, but it never totally goes away. So we have this kind of like emotional hangover. The second one is we might try to avoid the emotion completely. So this is where we just try to jump over it, seek some false pleasure from something else, like say, wine, chocolate, watching Netflix, scrolling on our social media, anything like that, right? Where we're just trying to kind of numb out and not feel it. Just want to avoid it completely. The third way is that we might react really outwardly to the emotion. So, think about the last time you lashed out in anger. That would be you reacting to your emotion, okay? Or maybe you lost your cool, something like that, right? So this is where I asked you all today if you could tell me what emotion is scary or like really uncomfortable for you to feel. What do you try to push down or avoid so that you don't have to look at it? Or maybe this is something that drives you to react in a way that you don't like the way you act in the world when you're feeling this emotion. So think for a minute, like I said at the beginning, about how your life might be different if you weren't afraid to feel that anymore, if you weren't repelled by it. And what if you could recognize it as part of your normal human experience? Normalize it for yourself, let it be there. Most human emotions are gonna come up, rise, reach a peak, and then drop off in about 2 or 3 minutes. And when we resist or we try to suppress our emotions out of fear, then we usually end up thinking a whole slew of thoughts that just simply add a bit of fuel to the fire. Okay, it's like if anybody's a camper, it's like fire paste. So you put a little fire paste on and it just starts this kind of slow burn at the beginning of the fire, right? And it just sits there and it kind of smolders away. So it's those days that you might feel as if you have a total emotional hangover. You're just like, oh, I've just felt so frustrated, so much shame today. I've just felt so sad all day today. And, I just don't know why. When we avoid our emotions, we're really just saying to ourselves listen, Anna, your legitimate human emotions, how you're reacting to things in the world, don't matter. So just buck up, have some wine, some chocolate, and move on, right? It's not really great either. Not only because it invalidates our own emotional experience of the world, but it also leads to other unintended consequences like bigger jeans, okay? And the third way, reacting outwardly, can actually have some negative consequences too. We might say things to people that we didn't mean to say. It might impact our relationships. We might do things that were later like, oh my gosh, why did I do that? Like, why did I make such a rash decision and do that way? So we come full circle back to why we might want to learn how to allow our feelings or process them, whatever, name you want to apply to it. How we might just want to let our real human experience be our real human experience. So how do we learn to do that? I'm going to suggest you find somebody, a safe person who you trust, to be your buddy to learn how to do this work. Coaches make very good buddies, by the way, to learn how to process emotions with. So the idea behind this is really just to talk through our experience of our emotions. And this is to bring us back in touch with what it feels like to feel human emotions, to just let them be there and just really see like what that looks like for us. So get to know it. Show yourself. It's just a physical sensation, right? It might be hot or cold. It might be fast or slow. It might be heavy or light. It might have some color associated with it. Any of those kind of criteria. Okay, show yourself what it's like to feel it in your body, and that even though it's uncomfortable, we might not like it. Nothing bad happens to us when we feel it. When we just allow it to be there. And especially if we allow it to be there without judgment, we don't try to manipulate it, we don't try to drive it away, we don't keep fueling it with more thoughts that just make us feel anxious about the fact that we feel anxious, say, for example. And just notice if you really don't fight it. You just let it be there and you focus more, instead of thinking in your brain, focus more on the physical sensation in your body and see how long it takes to pass. It gets easier every single time you do this. Because feelings are for feeling. Just like Glennon Doyle said in that quote I shared with you earlier, they are normal. They are part of the human experience. In fact, they don't harm us, but in many ways we can learn things from our feelings if we really know that they're there and what they might drive us to do if we act from them. But it's not always the way you might think, okay? So sometimes, for instance, fear, right? We might think that fear is telling us to move away from something. But a lot of times when we're on the precipice of trying something new, we experience fear, we experience anxiety. And if we can actually learn how to lean into that, then our courage is born. So I saw this fun meme, I'll share it in the group on a friend's Facebook tonight. And I just wanted to share this with you because it made me think of our challenge. So we may feel fear, but we do not have to give into it. We can do whatever we need and want to do, even if we have to do it afraid. Courage is not the absence of fear. It's action in the presence of fear. So on that note, if you're interested in completing this challenge with us, tomorrow is the final day, so I'm going to pick the winner. Then take a few minutes and just think about what it physically feels like to feel that emotion that you wrote about earlier today. And let me know how you might show up different in the world, what might be different in your life, what might change in your relationships, what might change in your relationship with yourself even, if you weren't afraid to feel that emotion anymore. So if you didn't, say, react to it, if you didn't avoid it, if you didn't resist it, how might your life change for the better? Share that with me. Okay, take care, everybody. I'm going to announce the book winner from today. I think I'll wait till tomorrow morning to do that so I can give you guys a chance to comment on tonight's post. And then tomorrow morning I'll have one more post for you. And tomorrow afternoon will be our live where I'm going to bring on my coaching team. So everybody, I'm going to bring you a whole crowdsourcing with a whole bunch of brains about ways that we can love being doctor again. And I will announce the grand prize winner tomorrow. Okay, take care. Have a good evening.